Hey everyone, welcome to the AFL Round 2 investor.bet betting trends report. In this video, I'm going to go through all 8 games coming up this weekend, break down the betting odds, any trends between these two sides and that are playing, what the odds were last time they met, who's been winning, who's been covering, have the games been going over, under the total, everything you need to start making good betting decisions. Then later in the week in the AFL Best Bets membership, that's where I'll post everything I'm personally betting this round. Breakdown with all the staking. So far, we've started the season 8-2 from our first 10 bets. So off to a really, really good start, and we'll look to continue it in the weeks ahead and coming up. First game of the round, Thursday night, Carlton looking to bounce back from their embarrassing loss against Richmond. Play Hawthorn. The Hawks are $1.42, 15.5 point favorites, and we have 168.5 total for this game. 3 of the past 4 between these two sides have gone under the total number. Hawthorn scored 112 in their last game against Carlton, which was the only game last season. Carlton started favourite at -1.5. There wasn't a great deal between the two sides. Then prior to that, Carlton won in round 16 in 2023. Carlton have now won 3 of the past 4 versus Hawthorn, but Hawthorn have covered the spread in 2 of the past 3. The game prior in round 3, 2022, was very, very close. Only a 1-point margin. From what we've seen of these two sides so far this season, Hawthorn really should be winning this game. The reason why I say that is Hawthorn are very, very efficient going forward with the ball. Carlton, when they lost to Richmond last week, only conceded 40 inside 50 entries. And now for Richmond to kick a winning score just from 40 entries, if Hawthorn generate 45, 50, 55 inside 50 entries, don't think Carlton's going to be able to keep up with them. So I like Hawthorn to get over the line here in the opening game. Then the Western Bulldogs against Collingwood. Collingwood, small favourites here, $1.62, -8.5. And the total is 176.5. The past 2 between these two sides have gone over. We've had 165.5 and 167.5 as the totals. Now we've got 176.5, so almost 10 points higher than their previous meeting. And the 6 games prior to the last 2 have all gone under the number. Western Bulldogs won their only meeting last year in round 12, 100 points to 82. And prior to that, Collingwood won the only meeting in round 23. So they've split the past 2, but the Bulldogs have won and covered 3 of the past 4. The favourite has won and covered the past 4. So that does set up well for Collingwood here. Most of those games, though, the Bulldogs were favourite. There's kind of 2 ways you can look at this game. One being which Collingwood's going to turn up is going to be the opening round Collingwood or the round 1 Collingwood. If the round 1 Collingwood, where they beat up on Port Adelaide, turns up, they'll win this game, as the Bulldogs are still missing a number of key personnel and weren't really impressive last week against North Melbourne. So I think Collingwood's definitely deserving to be favourite. Obviously, final lineups aren't out until later in the week, but it's unlikely the Bulldogs, with the current injuries they have, get too many players to return. So I think Collingwood probably get over the line in this game, but whether they can hold their form is definitely the question mark. Essendon take on Adelaide. The Crows, $1.65, -7.5, and the total is 176.5. 8 points higher than their last meeting, which went over in a total of 228 points in that game. I definitely think the raise in the total is justified. Adelaide, dominant win in week 1, and then Essendon coming off a loss against Hawthorn. Essendon do have a very, very good record against the Crows. They've won 7 of the past 8. And at home here, they would give themselves definitely a chance of getting over the line. I think instead of picking a side in this game, more so leaning towards the total, as I can definitely see it being a high-scoring game. Essendon have scored 78 or more in each of the past 5, including 3 scores over 100. And the other thing that makes me hesitant to pick a side in this game is the fact that 4 of the past 6 between these two sides have been decided by 4 points or less. Last time they met, it was 2 points, and the prior time in round 6 last year was 3 points. And if you go back to round 2022, it was 103 to 99, so a 4-point margin. And then just prior to that, there was another very, very close game as well. But definitely like the total in that game. Port Adelaide versus Richmond. Port, big favourites, coming off a huge loss, are $1.11 here against Richmond, who was $6.50, and the line is -38.5. Total at 176.5. The past 2 between these two sides have gone over. At 176.5, I'd more so be leaning towards the under in this game. Richmond have covered 6 of the past 8 versus Port Adelaide, so a very, very good record as big underdogs in covering the spread. You can see they covered at plus 44.5, plus 38.5 in 2 of the past 3 games. Last time they met, it was minus 44.5. So right there is a perfect example where you can see the adjustment, and it's even better because that game was at home for Adelaide or Port Adelaide towards the end of last season. And they're $1.07. Now they're $1.11 off a poor performance against Collingwood. Richmond coming off the win. And the line has adjusted exactly for that. The past 16 between these two sides have been decided by 41 points or less. So there's rarely been an absolute blowout. And the majority of those games are in that 15 to 25 point margin. Think Port Adelaide should win. They shouldn't take Richmond lightly like Carlton did. And at home, I think if Richmond would win this game, then there will be a lot of pressure on Port Adelaide and especially the coaching staff, as their supporters are always very, very quick to react when the teams are not playing well. St Kilda versus Geelong. Geelong $1.27 minus 23.5. Even though St Kilda have won 3 of the past 5 versus the Cats and covered 5 of the past 6. So St Kilda have a very, very good record against Geelong, considering you think Geelong get over the line here off what we saw of these two sides in week 1. We would need dramatic form reversals from both sides in order for St Kilda to be winning this game. 4 of the past 6 head-to-head have gone over. We have 173.5 point total, which is very high for these two sides. As you can see here, the previous lines were 161.5, 160.5, and then 150.5 going back to 2022. So this number is considerably higher than what we've seen. Off of that, you can kind of make a case that Geelong could run right up a score here, but do St Kilda have enough points in them? Fremantle struggled to score last week against Geelong, and St Kilda struggled alone to score against the Crows, and Geelong are a better defensive side than Adelaide. Instead of playing a total, I'm more so leaning towards the side in this game. Brisbane, huge favourites here against West Coast, $1.03, minus 56.5. We don't have totals yet for the Sunday games as they're not posted. But for this matchup, 4 of the past 6 head-to-head have gone under. Last time they met, though, over in Perth, Brisbane ran out 13-point winners, didn't cover the spread, but won as $1.16 favourites. And then back in 2023, their last meeting at the Gabba, Brisbane were minus 85.5. Interestingly, like that game was about a year and a half ago, and we've seen this line go from minus 85.5 and minus 72.5 in the game in 2022 down to 56.5. And to be honest, like I don't love playing big lines like this. However, this is definitely a line that does interest me quite a bit, as I think Brisbane, of what they did against Sydney and now back at home against West Coast, who are awful over in Perth in week 1, is a very, very good opportunity for Brisbane to really get a percentage boost early on in the season. West Coast struggled massively in defense and to generate any inside 50s at all against Gold Coast. I think their final total is only 34 inside 50s. And if they give Brisbane that much possession in their forward half, Brisbane will really run up a score against them. So I can see the Lions covering that number. And until we get a total on this game, it's hard to obviously say which way we'd like to go. Interestingly, last time they met at the Gabba, we had 193.5 was the final, like the closing total line for that game. North Melbourne versus Melbourne. Melbourne, $1.33, minus 19.5. Both sides looking for their first win of the season. North Melbourne have covered 4 of the past 5 versus Melbourne Demons, but Melbourne have won the past 6. So what that tells us is the line has been too big in their previous meetings, that Melbourne's been getting over the line, but only by smallish margins. You can see last time they met, Melbourne were minus 27.5, only won by 3 points. So North covered at plus 27.5. Prior to that, Melbourne won by 32. North Melbourne covered, though, as they had a 45.5 point head start. In 2023, the MCG, Melbourne won that game in a big blowout and covered the 49.5 spread. And then prior to that, North Melbourne covered in losses as plus 64.5 and plus 57.5. This 19.5 number is the lowest that we've seen in recent times between these two sides. Melbourne were okay and probably cost themselves the game towards the end there against GWS in poor conditions. And North Melbourne definitely threw down the challenge to the Bulldogs, but just weren't quite able to get over the line. Definitely think this is going to be a close game. I think the line is about right. Maybe there's a slight edge with North Melbourne at the plus 19.5, but not a great deal. Interestingly, for two sides that historically struggle to score, 11 of the past 14 head-to-head have gone over the total points line. Last time they met, it was 166.5. I think we'll see a slightly higher number than that this time around, probably in the low to mid 170s. At this stage, I'd lean slightly towards it going over that number. That is what eventuates, and that's what we get. Fremantle versus Sydney, final game of the round. Fremantle favourites here, $1.68, minus 6.5, coming off kind of embarrassing loss against Geelong. Sydney are now 0-2 and in desperate need of a win. Similar to Carlton against Hawthorn, the Swans really should come out hungry early on in this game and try and get the jump on Fremantle. Won't be easy to do over in Perth. This is Freo's first game over there, and obviously they are in as favourites. Last time they met in Perth in round 9 last year, the Swans were 6.5-point favourites, so we've got an exact opposite line. However, the away team has won and covered the past 5 in this matchup. So whether Sydney's travelling to Perth, where they've won the past 3 over there, or Fremantle's going to Sydney, where they've won the past 2, it hasn't mattered the travel distance between these two sides. You definitely give Sydney a strong chance, and to be honest, I am surprised they are 220. I feel like this game, Sydney, you wouldn't even be that surprised if they were favourite for this game, but even, $1.90 or $1.85 to Freo or $1.95 to Sydney would kind of be the more so number that I was expecting. So I'm a touch surprised at the current market. Sydney have won and covered 4 of the past 6 as well against Fremantle, and 3 of the past 4 head-to-head have gone over. I just get the feeling like Sydney overall, as it stands, are probably the better side and have more points in them. Fremantle's attack really struggled against Geelong, and their defense, which has been like their main asset, was broken right apart by Geelong. So whether Sydney can... they're not going to replicate the similar game style as Geelong, but playing their own style, can they break down the Freo defense? From a total perspective, obviously there's no number yet. When they meet in Perth, we generally see a number around $1.60. We had 158.5 last time, which went under, 162.5 in round 19-23, which went over, and then 161.5 back in round 18-2022, which went under. So 2 of the past 3 at Optus Stadium have gone under between these two sides, and that number's always been around that 160 mark. So we'll see what number they post when they finally put up the total for that game. So that's my early thoughts on the 8 games coming up this weekend. Hopefully this video was insightful and helpful for you when it comes to the betting trends and betting history. The betting statistics and the bet finders, that's everything I cover in the best bets preview video later in the week, and where I go through everything I'm specifically betting, the staking, so then you have the entire strategy to follow each week. So every weekend betting on the AFL, you have the strategy to be able to profit and build profits right throughout the season. It's not about just having like one big weekend and that'll save everything. It's about consistently profiting. Like for example, opening round we went 2-0, hit both games. Then round 1 effectively, we went 6-2 to bring us to 8-2 overall on the season and profiting in both weeks so far. So definitely, I'll put the link in the description. Check that out if you're interested in betting on the AFL and making profits. Thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned for more betting previews right throughout the season.